Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this press conference at the Second United Nations Conference on Landlocked Developing Countries. I'm Martin Azurki. I'm the Director of the UN Information Service here in Vienna. Let me introduce our speakers, please. We have United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, the Austrian Federal Minister for Europe, Integration and Foreign Affairs, Sebastian Kurz, who will be speaking in his function as the President of the conference. The Undersecretary General and High Representative for the Least Developed Countries, Landlocked Developing Countries and Small Island Developing States, Gayan Chandra Acharya, who will speak in his function as the Secretary General of the conference. And last but not least, of course, Zambia's Minister of Transport, Work, Supply and Communication, Yamfwa Mukanga, who will speak in his function as the Chair of the group of LLDCs. So, first of all, Secretary General, I would like to give you the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Foreign Minister. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, good morning. It's a great pleasure to participate in this very important meeting. I'm also very much encouraged to work together with the many heads of state and government, ministers and delegations from top delegations from landlocked developing countries and their partners from around the world. I thank particularly President Fisher and Government of Australia for their generous contribution always to the goals and objectives of the United Nations. The second United Nations Conference on Landlocked Developing States is a milestone in our efforts to focus global attention on their challenges and potential. We are discussing how to reduce transportation costs, diversify economies, and move the products of these countries up value chains. We want to empower people to improve their lives and advance national progress. This conference is also a critical part of the United Nations' broader campaign for a more sustainable future. We want to turn landlocked countries into land-linked countries, integrated with the global economy in a way that connects both markets and people. The issues we are discussing here are central to the global dialogue of the United Nations is now leading on a bold new framework for sustainable development. I count on this conference to contribute to a successful post-25 agenda to succeed the Millennium Development Goals. 11 years ago, the world came together in Almaty to adopt the forward-looking program of action. Over the next 3 days here in Vienna, we need to forge an even more ambitious, comprehensive, and results-oriented plan. I count on delegations to be bold and forward-looking. The United Nations will continue to help landlocked developing countries to achieve a life of dignity for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. Now I'd like to give the floor to our next speaker, the President of the conference, Mr. Sebastian Kurz. Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Austria has a long tradition as a place for international dialogue and for international organizations. We are therefore very proud to host the UN and in total 37 international organizations here in Austria. The presence of international organizations like the UN has become part of our identity, especially here in Vienna. Today's conference is therefore very important for us. It is the biggest UN conference we have had here in Vienna for 10 years, and we appreciate it very much that the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and numerous leaders from around the world are participating in this conference. As a landlocked country ourselves, we know about the impact this particular geographic situation has on trade and business development. It is therefore important that we not only restate our commitment to help the world's 32 landlocked developing countries, Our aim should be to adopt here in Vienna a new program of action with clear priorities and a concrete time frame. I hope that we will have a successful conference, and I would like to thank you, Secretary General, once again for coming to Vienna. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now I'd like to give the floor to the Secretary General of the conference, Mr. Gayan Chandra Acharya. Mr. Secretary General, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I would also like to associate myself with what the Secretary General had just said, the importance of this conference. I would like to thank the government of Austria for organizing it. You may be aware that when we talk about 32 landlocked developing countries, they are, the 16 are in Africa, 10 are in Asia, 4 in Europe, and 2 in Latin America. So it is all over the world. Secondly, I would also like to stress that we are talking about 440 million people which are living there. When you look at the Human Development Index of all these countries, they are almost at the lowest level of the Human Development Index. So through this conference, we are really trying to see how we can make use of the cooperation, collaboration, and international support with a very strong national leadership in all these countries. The areas that they are really looking at is transit, trade, transportation, structural transformation of their economy, and the impacts of the global challenges on them, and then the international support measures and means of implementation. And finally, I just would like to also stress that besides plenary session, in which we have seen heads of state, ministers, and others coming in, we have a very high-level roundtables that we are organizing that will give an opportunity to really interact and find best practices and also deal with these solutions, learn from each other, and enhance the partnership. There are also many side events organized by many countries as well as international organizations, almost about 20 we have there. And then, of course, there is a very important business and investment forum that we are organizing tomorrow. By working together with all the stakeholders, we hope that we will lift the issue of the landlocked countries at the global level and also help them fulfill their aspirations. This is why this conference is very important for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary General Acharya. And now I'd like to give the floor, please, to the chair of the group of LLTCs, Mr. Yamfwa Mukanga. Please, Mr. Chair, the floor is yours.
First, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak at this press conference and to make a statement on behalf of the 32 member countries of the group of landlocked developing countries in the capacity of Zambia as chair of the group of landlocked developing countries. May I express our sincere gratitude to the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Mr.Ban Ki-moon, for ensuring that this conference is convened as mandated by the United Nations General Assembly to undertake the review of the UNMEER Program of Action. My sincere gratitude should also go to the Under-Secretary General, Mr. Gayan Chandra Acharya, who is the Secretary General of the conference, and to the member states of the group of landlocked developing countries for their dedication and commitment during the regional review meetings and other preparatory meetings towards this conference. May I also thank the government of Austria and in particular His Excellency Heinz Fletcher, the President of the Republic of Austria, for the generous offer to host this second United Nations Conference on landlocked developing countries. This shows Austria's commitment to work with sister landlocked countries, though it is herself a developed country, and to show that the challenges of landlockedness are not insurmountable. As a group of landlocked developing countries, we take this conference as an important milestone to assess the progress we have made and further provide renewed commitment to the landlocked developing countries development agenda in an integrated, comprehensive, and holistic manner. Looking ahead, our expectations are that together with the international community, we can come out of Vienna with a holistic and result-oriented 10-year program of action which will steer the development agenda to higher levels and address the following key issues. A, the fundamental transit policy issues. B, infrastructure development and maintenance, including road, rail, energy, and ICTs. C, international trade and trade facilitation. D, structural transformation that looks at improving the economic competitiveness of our group of countries through improved productive capacities and value addition and diversification of our economies. E, regional integration and cooperation. And F, improved means of implementation with increased and improved supportive measures to assist the landlocked developing countries in implementing the priority actions. I therefore appeal to the landlocked developing countries to be committed to this agenda and ensure successful implementation of the priorities of the new program of action. I further call upon the landlocked developing countries, transit countries, the development partners, and the entire international community to be focused, expectant, and optimistic in their assistance to address the special needs of the landlocked developing countries by placing high on the priority list of the new development agenda the outcome of this conference for the next decade. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair. Now I'd like to open the floor for questions. And could you please identify yourself and the media you're representing? And could you perhaps please keep your questions quite brief as well, so we can try to get in as many questions as possible. So questions, please. Yes, please could you use the microphone?
Dugo Özkan from the daily newspaper Die Presse. I will address all of you. Do you have a specific time frame for implementing all the actions you will decide at this conference?
I expect that member states will build upon Almaty program of action. During last 11 years, the world has changed rapidly. And while we have been able to reduce the number of extreme poverty significantly, and we have made a lot of progresses in Millennium Development Goals, but you will agree that there are a lot of things to do. That is why this importance of this meeting in Vienna can never be emphasized. Over coming 10 years from Vienna until we have a third conference, I'm sure that member states will have mechanisms to monitor the implementation of plan of action that they will agree upon. United Nations will continue to work with the member states to ensure that full implementation as part of sustainable development goals, which will be agreed upon by the leaders next year. This is an important part of ensuring that this world's people, particularly landlocked countries' people, should live in harmony and prosperous way without being left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to check whether any of the other panelists have anything to add. Okay. Further questions, please. Yes, please.
I'm Jonathan Tyrone. I'm with Bloomberg News. I have a question for the Secretary General and for Foreign Minister Kurz. Secretary General, you mentioned that landlocked countries need to integrate so that people have access to markets. It would follow that landlocked countries actually have a higher stake in the international system and international cooperation. What kind of examples and lessons can we learn from the recent energy crises that landlocked countries in Eurasia have faced and in Eastern Europe have faced because of the conflict in Ukraine? Are there any lessons that we can draw from that?
Recently, I participated in the Small Island Developing States Conference, which was again organized by the United Nations in Samoa. The people who are living in the small island developing states and also landlocked developing states, they are experiencing similar difficulties in their real life. First of all, landlocked countries have to find some strong support and flexible support from neighboring countries in transit to the oceans or whatever. It's always much more costly when you bring all the goods by air, or land transportation takes a longer time, and thus the import price is much higher than normal countries, open countries. All these kind of difficulties and should be harmonized with the strong support of countries around the world. For example, President and the Foreign Minister stated in their statement, Austria is a landlocked country, but being a member of European Union, they do not feel that kind of difficulties. They are part of the whole European Union. There are many regional groupings, African Union and OAS, etc. Then we need the full support so that these landlocked countries and the small island developing countries can really be fully integrated in normal activities, economic activities, be it investment, trade, and whatever it may be. That is the main purpose of the United Nations holding these two important meetings this year.
I think important for landlocked countries is the regional cooperation, and you also mentioned crisis in Ukraine and what we could learn. I think focusing on the energy area, I think what we could learn is that we need diversification of sources and also diversification of transit routes, not only for landlocked countries, but for the whole region.
Yes, please. Please, Secretary General.
Just one sentence on that. In the proposed Vienna draft program of action, there is a provision to promote energy transmission, energy pipelines, as well as investment in those structures as well. So I think that's a very good sign of that as well.
Further questions, please. Yes, please, Frederick.
Fredrik from Reuters news agency. A question for the Secretary General about the situation in Ukraine. Could you give us your reaction to the election that was held in the east of Ukraine yesterday, and also how do you think the international community, including Russia, should react to this election? Thank you.
Before answering to your question, ladies and gentlemen, I'm told that inadvertently I recognize Austria as Australia. I think. Sorry for that, but I think you know that there is no kangaroos in Austria. Sometimes this happens. I hope you'll understand. I hope you'll understand, Mr. Minister.
It's fine.
About this situation in Ukraine, this has been the source of great concerns by the international community. As the Secretary General of the United Nations, I have been engaging with the parties concerned, Ukrainians and also Russian leadership all the times. I have taken note of the elections which took place in the southeastern part of Ukraine. I have been urging the parties concerned, particularly the people of Ukraine, to resolve all pending issues, whatever they may have, between the central government and eastern part of Ukraine, to resolve all these issues through a dialogue in peaceful means, and particularly when there was an agreement between the parties, this Minsk protocol and memorandum. This will give good guidelines which have been welcomed by the United Nations, by international community. I sincerely hope that rather than having all this confrontational situation continuing, the people of Ukraine should really look for their better future, where they can really engage in sustainable development, engage in political stability for the benefit, for the future of their people. And UN will continue to work with them. In other parts, we are extremely concerned about the continuing humanitarian crisis there. UN will continue to mobilize resources and provide humanitarian assistance to those people who are in need, and also will continue to monitor the human rights situations in the region. And I'm encouraged that Ukrainian government has extended the mandate of human rights monitoring team of the United Nations until December 15. I sincerely hope that this mandate will be extended further into next year. Thank you.
Quick follow-up on the specific issue of the election yesterday. Do you think it's a legitimate election?
I have issued my statement a few days ago about election in that particular area. Thank you.
Further questions, please. Yes, please.
Shadia Nasrallah from Reuters news agency. Secretary General, I have a question which touches upon international trade and concerns many countries. What should be the next step to contain Ebola, and what does the international community need to do to contain the crisis, you know, in the short term? Thank you very much.
Ebola outbreak is an unprecedented crisis for the international community, thus require global response in a massive and speedy way. That is why United Nations has been mobilizing international support in terms of logistical, financial, and political support, and also encouraging the many member states to send medical and health workers to the region. We have established the United Nations mission for Ebola emergency response called UNMEER. We are really working very hard to address this issue with utmost priority in a massive way. We really hope that we will be able to curb down this spread of Ebola viruses. In this regard, particularly relating to your question on specific area of trade and communication and movement of goods and people, the best way to stop this virus is to stop the virus at its source, rather than limiting or restricting the movement of people or trade. That is why I have been urging all major international airlines and major shipping service lines to continue their normal trade and movement and transportations. And particularly when there are some unnecessarily extra restrictions and discriminations against health workers. These people who are working on the ground to help the people affected, they are extraordinary people who are giving of themselves. They are risking their own lives. We have seen more than 250 health workers who died in the course of their providing health services. Of course, when somebody has a symptom of this Ebola, those people should be immediately treated and supported and evacuated when necessary. That's what I'm really mobilizing support, including medevac capacity. Even day before yesterday, French government has helped the United Nations staff to be evacuated. This we are very much grateful. And therefore, unnecessarily strong and strict restrictions or discriminations, including quarantining those health workers, when they are not based on science and medical evidence, then they should be treated as normal. Of course, one should go through a normal procedures to make sure that one is not affected. That is my urgent and honest appeal to international community again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. Thank you very much for coming to the press conference. And as the Secretary General of the conference also said, I'd like to encourage you to cover all of the meetings of the conference, and you'll find much of this is being webcast as well. Thank you very much indeed for coming.